with. What if life was never meant to be conquered, but only understood, like a river that carries us, not to be fought, but floated with? With, we stir against the current, naming it struggle, yet the river simply flows. We crave control, not realizing the wind bends the trees without ever breaking them. Somewhere along the line, we began mistaking noise for meaning, effort for worth, and silence for emptiness. But the stars do not strain to shine, nor does the moon ask permission to rise. The world moves with a rhythm older than thought, and we are not separate from it. We are it. Each heart-tack, each joy, with. Each still moment is a note in the grand, divine composition. Life was always easy. It is our forgetting that makes it feel hard. But with, you were never lost. You were always dancing to music too vast to hear. Until now, with. When we cling to the idea that life is something we must master, we lose sight of its true beauty. Consider how we navigate our days with the constant urge to control every outcome, every twist of fate. We strain against the current, with, believing that we alone determine the path of our journey. Yet, in our fervor to dominate destiny, but with, we often miss the gentle unfolding that might otherwise reveal its wonders. But with, our life is like a winding river that invites us to sail effortlessly, to let the water guide us rather than wrestle with its natural flow. With, imagine standing at the riverbank, feeling the cool mist on your face. With, and watching the water travel past with an innate rhythm that has no hurry yet knows its destination intimately. With, when we try to force our way through this journey by seizing control. But with, we are like a person desperately paddling upstream against a current that was never meant to be mastered. But with, the more we resist the natural movement, the more we create tension and sorrow in our hearts. A friction that results in suffering. With, we become entangled in a web of our own desires, unable to see that the universe is always inviting us to step back. With, to surrender to its wisdom. There is a peculiar irony in our desire to direct every moment. We believe that if we simply control every ripple and wave, we can design a perfect life. Yet, in doing so, but with, we deny ourselves the spontaneous magic of unplanned encounters, the unbidden moments of joy that occur when we simply allow life to be. With, like a master painter who sometimes leaves broad strokes of spontaneity, so too does life reward us when we paint with the colors of trust and openness. When we let go, but with, we find that the same forces we fought against are the ones that carry us forward, gently and surely. At its core, with, the need for control is rooted in fear, the fear of the unknown, of chaos, of being swallowed up by life's unpredictability. With, but what if we reframe this fear as an invitation? Every moment when we feel the urge to impose our will on life is also a moment where we are offered a choice to resist or to accept. With, and in this simple acceptance, there is a quiet liberation. With, embracing the inherent uncertainty of life means discovering that true strength is not in control, but in trust. Trust that the universe, in its boundless creativity, unfolds events in a manner that often exceeds our limited understanding. When we embrace the natural course of events, with, we allow ourselves to experience life as an intricate dance where we are both the dancer and the music. With, it is in this dance that we find deep connection, a rhythm that resonates with the pulse of all creation. Resisting the flow is akin to attempting to recite a beautiful poem backwards, denying the natural cadence of its verses. Instead, with, if we listen deeply, we become aware that the sounds, the timing, with, and the spaces between notes are perfectly balanced in a way that our restless minds rarely comprehend. But with, the liberation that comes from surrendering to life's current is not about giving up personal power, but rather about discovering a different kind of strength. A strength that acknowledges our place within a vast, with, interconnected web of being. when we let go of the desperate need for control. With, we open ourselves to experiences that transform us in subtle, profound ways. We begin to notice the silent wisdom in the ordinary, but with the grace in the unpredictable and the beauty of each unfolding moment. With, it is a remarkable realization when we see that trying to command life only makes the journey heavier. With, while surrendering to its natural flow lightens our load and enriches our soul. In this acceptance, with, we find a serenity that can only be described as a return to our innate nature, a state of harmony with the universe where every breath and every step is a celebration of life's own magnificent design. So, let us ease the tight grip on our imagined reins and step lightly into the current. Recognize that the universe moves in with mysterious, majestic rhythms, and by resisting it we only rob ourselves of the chance to truly belong to the cosmic dance. Control is an illusion. It's strange, isn't it, with how we've grown so uncomfortable with silence, so uneasy in the company of our own thoughts. The moment things quiet down, with, we reach for something, the phone, the noise, the next thing to do. We act as though stillness is some kind of void we must escape. But silence is not empty. It's full, rich with the presence of everything we've been trying not to feel. We've become experts in the art of distraction. We run from pain, from confusion, from uncertainty. We numb ourselves with business, with scrolling, with small talk and ambition, not because these things are inherently wrong, but because we use them to shield ourselves from the deeper questions. But with the ones that stir just beneath the surface when the world stops spinning for a moment. Why am I here? What do I truly long for? But with, what have I not forgiven? But rather than listen, we turn the volume up, and in doing so, we miss the sacred invitation that silence offers. There's a quiet voice within you, soft and patient, but that's been trying to reach you your whole life. It doesn't shout, it doesn't compete, it waits. And every time you drown it out with noise, you're not just avoiding discomfort. You're ignoring the part of you that knows the way home. You see, misery doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it arrives in silence that's been neglected too long. But we think pain comes from what we feel, but often it comes from what we refuse to feel. The grief that was never grieved, the questions that were never asked, the longing that was never given a name. When we don't make space for these things, but they don't appear, they just sink deeper, festering quietly until life begins to feel hollow and aimless. Stillness is not your enemy. It's not a dark room waiting to swallow you. It's a sanctuary waiting to receive you. There's a profound intelligence in quiet moments, and the more we avoid them, the more fragmented we become. When you sit with silence long enough, something remarkable begins to happen. The layers start to peel away. The chaos settles, and what's left is clarity. Not the kind that comes from figuring things out, but the kind that comes from letting things be. It's in this space that healing begins, because finally there's room to feel, to remember, to breathe. But there's no need to fix anything or solve some cosmic puzzle. You simply become present, and in that presence, everything you were searching for starts to rise from within. Meaning doesn't come from noise, it's born in the depth of your stillness. We are so afraid of discomfort that we mistake it for failure. But discomfort is a signpost. It tells you where to look. When you stop running from it, when you stop filling every gap with noise and motion, you discover that what you feared wasn't the silence itself, but the truths it contains. And here's the beautiful paradox, those truths once faced don't burden you, they free you. So the next time you feel that pull to escape, the urge to fill your day with just one more thing, pause, let the silence come. Let it speak. Allow yourself to sit with the unknown, not as a problem to be solved, but as a teacher to be honored. There is wisdom in the pause. There is direction in the stillness. And there is an ancient, with unshakable peace at the center of your being, waiting to be remembered. All of life is a conversation. But if you never stop talking, you'll never hear what life has to say. Stillness is not the absence of life. It is where life begins to speak. We walk through life as if we are separate. Separate from the trees, from the sky, from one another. Even separate from ourselves. We wear the mask of the individual, believing that what happens to someone else is not our concern. That nature is something out there, and that meaning must be sought as though it were hidden somewhere beyond the world we inhabit. But the truth is, this illusion of separation is the very root of our suffering. Have you ever watched birds fly in perfect unison or how the ocean doesn't argue with the shore? It simply embraces it again and again. Life does not move in isolation. Everything is woven together in a single, intricate dance. You breathe because the trees give you breath. You exist because the stars exploded millions of years ago. You are not a lonely island floating in space. You are the space, the stars, the breath, the wind. And yet, we live as though we are alone. When we forget our interconnectedness, something begins to die inside us. We start to believe that our pain is ours alone to carry, that our joys are victories we must hoard, that love must be earned and fear must be hidden. But we become so focused on our individual paths that we miss the fact that every path touches another. We pass each other on the street without looking, speak, but without listening, take with offering, build without grounding. And then we wonder why we feel so empty. But that emptiness is not a lack of achievement or love or direction. It's the H of forgetting. The soul remembers what the mind denies, that we belong to one another, that we are all leaves on the same tree, waves in the same sea. Misery is not born from being alone, it is born from believing that we are alone. And it's easy to forget. The modern world teaches us to compete rather than connect, to compare rather than commune. Success becomes a solitary pursuit. We measure ourselves against others, unaware that there is no other. There is only one vast being, expressing itself in infinite forms. You are not looking at another person. You are looking at another version of yourself, shaped by a different wind, sculpted by a different sun. When you harm another, you harm yourself. When you lift another, you rise with them. This isn't a poetic metaphor. It's the nature of things. What happens when we remember this? When we begin to see the sacred thread that binds all things. Compassion becomes natural. Forgiveness arises without effort. A love stops being a transaction and becomes a recognition. You see a child crying and you don't just notice it. You feel it. You see an old man sitting alone and you know what loneliness tastes like, because suddenly, their life is not separate from yours. It is yours. And in that moment of remembrance, something beautiful happens. You stop fighting. You stop needing to be better, faster, richer, wiser. You just begin to be. And in being, you belong. You belong to the trees, to the sky, to the silence between words. You belong to this vast, breathing mystery. And the mystery belongs to you. We're not here to conquer life. We're here to recognize ourselves in it. In every laugh, every tear, every star above and every stone below. There's nothing to chase. There's only something to remember. So look up. Look around. Look within. You were never meant to walk this world alone, because you never have. We all want a life without pain, don't we? A life of ease, comfort, uninterrupted joy. And so, from the very beginning, we're taught to avoid discomfort, to dodge what hurts, numb what achieves and outrun what confuses us. But pain isn't some enemy to be defeated. It's a messenger. It comes not to punish you, but to teach you, often the very lesson your soul has been longing to learn. Yet we treat suffering like a malfunction, like something went terribly wrong. When things fall apart, we panic. When the heart breaks, we scramble to fix it, distract ourselves move on. But there is wisdom in heartbreak, in loss, in despair. These aren't accidents. They're invitations. Life, in its strange and infinite compassion, will keep knocking until you listen. And the knocks get louder when we don't answer. You see, discomfort is the doorway to transformation. But most of us spend our lives camped outside that door, never daring to enter. We don't want to feel the grief, the shame, the anger. We suppress it, spiritualize it, justify it, anything but feel it. What we resist only grows, like a wound ignored, it festers. And suddenly we find ourselves living in quiet misery. Not because of what we felt, but because of what we refused to feel. The truth is, suffering carves us out. It hollows us so we can hold more. Not more pain, but more understanding, more presence, more love. Think of it like fire. It burns, yes, but it also purifies. It reduces the unnecessary to ash and leaves behind only what matters. Without it, we carry too much. Our egos grow heavy. Our identities become cages. And so life, in its brilliance, shakes the structure. Not to break us, but to reveal us. Have you noticed how the people who have truly suffered carry a different kind of wisdom? There's a softness in them, not weakness, but depth. A gentleness that comes from knowing what it is to shatter and survive. These are the ones who listen more than they speak, who don't need to be right, who hold space for others not out of duty, but because they remember how sacred it felt when someone held space for them, And what's remarkable is that once you've truly faced your suffering, sat with it, wept with it, breathed through it, it no longer controls you. It no longer hides in the dark corners of your being, waiting to ambush you when you're tired or alone. No, it becomes part of you, not as a scar, but as a symbol that you lived. Deeply, honestly, without turning away. We are taught to chase happiness. But joy, real joy, doesn't come from escape. It comes from integration, from knowing the depths and still choosing to rise. Not in spite of your wounds, but because of them. You become more human, more whole, more awake. So, stop running, stop numbing, stop pretending it doesn't hurt. But sit with it, listen. Ask it what it came to show you. You might be surprised at how lovingly life responds when you stop resisting it. But the pain not vanish, but your relationship to it will. And that changes everything. But there is a sacred kind of freedom that comes not from avoiding the fire, but from walking through it and realizing you were never meant to be untouched. You were meant to be transformed because only what has been broken open can ever truly be filled.